I will talk next about the data desk itself and your roles. Let me just share my screen quickly. So let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see.
Okay, I will do a hard stop where I have reached. When we will have to decide how we move next. There are still a lot of things that we've not covered, but we can have a discussion on how to complete this, because I don't think by 12 that you will be done. So the data desk. The data desk is a place where information can be shared with the relevant stakeholders. This is what we looked at essentially. Maybe you are in transport and you need some information on agriculture for planning. They would come to the data desk and get it. A coordinated place where information is shared by default as opposed to you have to pull, you have to engage. And it serves both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. It's just that internal stakeholders can have more nuanced information than the external ones. What is the mandate? Transfer any data from paper to PDF. It could also include language, because we didn't cover it. But on Open County, we can decide we want to accommodate multiple languages. How do people access information in different languages? Like I know this book, the PMC. The PMCs have a handbook in Canva. So, for example, how do we also allow citizens to access information that way? How do we print information? It was raised and then put up posters in the ward or at the offices so that people can see an overview of the ward, for example. Verify data quality, asking critical questions when it is shared. For example, tourism information. Are we collecting information on how many beds are occupied, and we can share that reliably or build the capacity in that department if they do not have it, the tourism guys. Regular training and support on using the platform, similar to what you are doing. And then, what we are discussing now, if there are any technical enhancements or upgrades to be done. So what are the resources required? We need, a team to be centralized who understand the data demands and the data supply needs and the issues at the county, such as those which have been raised, so that we can work with it and we implement. Okay? And then we begin to look, this investment in data, what is it leading to? Are we getting more transparent processes? Are we making better decisions? Both internally, is public participation easier, or it's more painful because of this investment in data? So we are also thinking of, systems bring with them work, and there's a cost associated with collecting data on indicators and sharing it. We want this to be something that simplifies as opposed to making work more difficult. So right now we have done a data desk at COG. I will not delve into it, but COG also have, if you go to opencounty.org, you'll be able to see an overall view of each county, but we think it should be a bottom-up approach in terms of each county being able to report on its own indicators, both internally and with their own citizens, so that then COG will be able to have that national view of data. this slide was a little bit talking about, which are the roles, for example, who is the project owner? The project owner, there are some notes here. The project owner is responsible for the bigger picture. What should we be doing? Why should we be doing it? Why should we open up? Why should we have open government at the county, for example? And they should also be the legal mandate and functions of the units, because there's a political aspect to it, not just a technical aspect of open government. Who owns the data? Who says now we can publish? And what is good use of the data? And what are the restrictions that we have around sensitive information? And these are some of the things we will discuss. I will try to cover quickly. Who interfaces with the data desk? So the data desk is yes, it's online, it's on Open County, but it's also like somebody walking in and asking for particular specific information. So it could be the public, it could be county assembly, it could be national government, it could be COG, it could be the county department, somebody requiring information. These are possible use cases where people want to download these spreadsheets that we have on Open County and do some further analysis on service delivery, for example. It could be national government wanting to talk about value for money, for example. We'll share all these slides with you. So this is the technical architecture that right now we want the Open County, the dashboard, to sit on the county website, and people from all over can be able to access it, through the internet, whether it's people at COG or these other stakeholders whom we covered here. So this slide was talking about, so this is a view of data on Open County. And obviously the obvious link, and we've been talking about it right now, is participation, is public participation. So how do we leverage the budget information for public participation? And some good practices, and which will be part of that publication. How can data be packaged in formats that can be digested by all users? So as we are excited about infographics and about analytics and about spreadsheets and about spatial information, but how do we cater for everyone's needs? How do we organize information so that its data is navigable, like it's intuitive to use, like you don't have to be trained to use Open County. Reusable, and by reusable you can download and do your own analysis on Excel. And then how do we continue to engage so that the data does not become obsolete? We are not publishing data for 2016 or 2020, that it is updated, it remains updated. Let me continue on to the last slide. I see no questions or comments next. I'll move on to the last slide that I wanted to talk about. So I wanted to talk about information governance and guidance on how we treat information governance. So there are information governance has to do with what will be the approach of the county government, what is the philosophy of data acquisition, management, archiving, and sharing. So we need to bridge the gap between information technology. Obviously, when you're talking about technology, it's more exciting to say, we have a platform, it uses PHP, it can scale, etc. We are using OpenStreetMaps, for example, it is open source. But how do we bridge the technology with the needs of the departments, and how do we say, okay, I am comfortable to share this information, I am not comfortable to share this information, and what are the rules that govern, even as we look at Open County, but also we are coming to fit into other platforms and systems that are there at the county. How do we decide we move forward on this? Because this has to do with open government, and so we need a data governance structure. So there are four main ways which people do this, and which we have found useful. Some things have to be top down, and my example from a top down approach comes from when a system has to be adopted, and it's pushed from the top. It gets resistance, but sometimes, for example, when you're talking about e-citizen being deployed, it's one example of a top-down approach. So the decision is made and we will not debate. A bottom-up approach is where we look down from the county staff and we want to engage and make decisions that filter upwards. That also happens. Center out is when you hire some consultants and we think because they are independent and they have certain skills that we don't have, then they will help us to make the best decision. And then a silo-in approach is where we bring together multiple representatives from multiple groups so that then we find the best way forward. Obviously, the disadvantage is we have to build in consensus and get buy-in. And that is good, so there is no resistance later, but sometimes what happens in terms of deployments and systems is it takes a long time. It takes a long time to get things done. So there's pros and cons for each of these approaches. So even when the reason why these bits of slides are important is now we have action points, for example, from the first meeting. So do we use a top-down? Do we use a bottom-up? Do we silo in? Do we do center out in terms of bringing this information? Like, will you need to go back to another team and say, we need to discuss this? I think that's why this conversation is important. And that's why it's part of standards and norms. And the reason we raise this issue is for legitimacy of open government at the county level. So in terms of KNBS, so we don't have a county statistics bit. Where we find ourselves is the conflict between KNBS being the one mandated to publish official statistics, but at the same time, for the purposes of public participation, the county is collecting statistics. How can they share them? So this conversation is going on. The best guideline that is there is the data quality assessment frameworks, but it's on balance of payment statistics. But there are things we can learn from there. For example, you will see from these slides, though KNBS is the principal agency of government for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating statistical information, NSS includes other producers, of which county is a producer and a user of statistics. For planning, like you cannot plan without information. And also for public participation, you cannot have a useful engagement if you don't publish, some information to citizens. And then obviously in terms of standards and norms, we don't want to publish information that uniquely identifies individuals. So that's a practice. That's a good standard. So for purposes of these slides, how do we engage with people's information and data? Benjamin talked a little bit about household information. How do we use it to inform us without violating any laws at the national level? That's number one. Also, number two, how do we do it in a way that has some standards or some guidelines which ensure that somebody from county assembly does not come to complain, or as the data desk you publish some information on health. Okay, and then it doesn't come to become a problem that I did not authorize this, because then there is a core team, a central team that is, not everyone will log in into the system and share information. So this is about putting in place the correct framework around publishing information, that we get our data sources accurate and right from each of the departments, that we triangulate. So for example, a data point is in the wrong word, okay, and we saw a couple of those. How do we deal with that or improve on it? Deciding what is high risk, what is not high risk. How frequently do we publish information? How do we present data clearly in the maps and charts and make sure that that is correct? KNBS insists, when you go to the KNBS website, mostly you'll find PDFs. You will not find visualizations and charts. So Open County is a step upward, is an improvement, is an enhancement. And then something that is good or strong on the KNBS website is they always give metadata. On Open County, we do not have a lot of metadata. How do we build up on that to improve on metadata, like this was published on this particular date by this department and so forth? And then how do we attribute? So you will see in the platform, when you look at the indicators, we name the sources. We name the sources of the information. You'll find this information is coming from the DHS, the Kenya Demographic and Health Survey, or the census for 2009, for example. So we need to build out that for us, at least, to be sound methodologically, even as we grapple with these other issues. And we credit the right sources with the information. Another thing that is important has to do with interoperability. We do not have standards right now, but it will be important to put them in place. So on the technical side, which I don't think we'll be able to cover today, is we have templates. We've introduced templates which departments across can use to share data internally and to upload this information on Open County. You find that each department maybe has the way in which they collect information and share it. We are concerned about indicators, being able to monitor Vision 2030, being able to monitor the CIDP, being able to monitor the SDGs. So how do we pull all of these things together and have a way in which, the data we generate can be used across, and we can decide this is how we'll share information even with external third parties.